Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the celebration of life of Dr. Hans Diehl. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and I truly thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to be here. I'm going to make every effort to give anyone who wants a chance to speak or share a memory of Hans or a fun story the chance to do so. But since this is being recorded, I do ask that everyone please keep themselves muted until the time that you speak. We're going to start the tribute to Hans very shortly with many of the most wonderful plant-based doctors who were not only Hans's colleagues, but also his dear friends. But first, I would like to say just a few words about why having this celebration of life is so important to me. It became very clear that when Hans passed away, the world lost a great man. But for many of us, the loss is much more deeply personal because we also lost a dear friend. Although I had only known Hans for a little over 15 years, he was like a father figure to me and meant more to me than I'll ever be able to express here today. In fact, just 2 days before his stroke, we were on the phone and he was helping me with a problem I was having in the usual Hans fashion. He was also very excited about a project he would soon be starting similar to the CHIP program, where he asked me to be the culinary instructor. When I started out in 2008, trying to make a name for myself in the plant-based community, Hans was the first person who believed in me and supported me and encouraged me. Hans wrote the introduction to my first book. And 22 conferences ago, when I produced my first conference and couldn't afford any of the big names, Hans agreed to speak for $750. When the conference was over, he tore the check up and proceeded to donate 30 of his hardcover cookbooks, signed and autographed for each one of our volunteers. When I gave my first talk at the McDougall Advanced Study Weekend, Hans leapt to his feet clapping, which led to a standing ovation. I was there when Hans was inducted into the Vegetarian Hall of Fame and returned the favor. Hans used to say that I would do well in life because I was a giver. But Hans was the ultimate of all givers. Hans was handsome, charming, eloquent, funny, and kind. And I was proud to call him my friend. If you stay until the end, I will share with you one of Hans's favorite stories that I promise will make you laugh and bring a smile to your face. While the loss of Hans is devastating to all of us, it is my wish here today that we can all share stories of hope and inspiration and joy in order to keep his memory alive. I would like to welcome our first speaker, Dr. Wayne Dysinger.
Thank you so much for hosting this and for allowing all of us to be here. I also see that Hans's family is here, and thank you so much for allowing us to do this and for being here. And you know, Hans was a friend, but he was a mentor to me. If it weren't for Hans, I wouldn't be a lifestyle medicine physician the way I am today. When I came to Loma Linda back in 2003, Hans, I was appointed the chair of preventive medicine, and Hans was very quickly. I'd known of Hans before. My parents actually were big CHIP proponents, and so they were going to CHIP conferences even before Hans and I started developing a relationship. But he sort of took me under his wings, and between Hans and some medical students who wanted to put on a CHIP program, I became more and more convinced in the power of lifestyle medicine. You know, and I always liked the idea, but I needed to see the science, and Hans was dedicated to the science, and he had to publish studies, and then I'm sure everyone on this call is very familiar with CHIP, and CHIP worked. CHIP really worked. And I don't know what the statistics are exactly. I hear over 100,000 lives have been transformed by CHIP. So we don't need to review the powerful benefits of CHIP. That legacy is forever established, and Hans will ever be remembered for that legacy and for Chip. I think more important right now is to talk about how Hans not only changed our lives, but changed the world. And I'll say, he did that because of some unique skills and talents. I loved Chef AJ talking about how he was a handsome guy and a charming guy, but he was also a very persistent person. The reason Chip was so successful was Hans never gave up. He hung in there. And my favorite story about Hans' persistence and never giving up is, if Hans wanted to get a hold of me, he knew how to get a hold of me. And I would, it wouldn't be uncommon that I'd be in my office and my work phone would ring, my cell phone would start ringing, and I'd get like emails from a couple different email accounts, all it seems like they all went off simultaneously. and so Hans would get me. And if I didn't answer, he would keep at it until I answered. And Chef AJ talked about a couple days before Hans's stroke. Well, I have two separate offices. I went to one of my offices, and there was a whole bunch of material from Hans about his new project, and it was there. I found it like 3 days after his stroke. So he was active to the end, dedicated to the end. And my memory of Hans is going to be more of him sort of putting his arm around me, around my shoulders, and sort of just giving me wisdom, giving me advice, giving me insights into how to hang in there, how to think about interacting with people. He'd give me advice on how to stay married, and all these different little, again, sort of almost fatherly, mentorly, but he was also a friend. He's a neighbor of mine. So I feel like we've lost Hans way too soon, but I feel like Hans's legacy was established a long time ago, and God saw fit to move him on, and who am I to question God? But I know Hans never questioned God, and I know that that Hans's connections to us and to the world will again forever be remembered. So again, it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to see everyone. Looking forward to all the memories that we're going to share here.
AJ, congratulations for really showing some leadership to pull this together. I just still am absolutely beyond belief that Hans is not with us, because somebody who was absolutely so vital and so much a part of our lives for so long, it just doesn't seem possible. It's kind of interesting that I was thinking about when I first encountered Hans, and it was, believe it or not, about 1993, when Hans was at that time really pushing his coronary health improvement program, CHIP. And part of that program was his relationship with Burkitt, of Burkitt's lymphoma fame, because Hans, when he was sort of marketing his program, in recognizing that he himself was not an MD, he liked the idea of having an MD there to reinforce the whole concepts and the data as we knew it at that time. Well, when Burkitt died, Hans was apparently looking for a new physician to be a part of his marketing effort. And I guess what happened is I was making some sort of a presentation when Lily was able to spot me and ask Hans to come look at this character. Well, apparently he liked what he saw, and he sure enough got in touch with us, and he wanted to meet with me. And so he came from California to the farm in upstate New York. It was during the summer and he visited us there. He stayed for a whole weekend, and we sort of solidified the relationship. And from there on, suddenly, with these marketing efforts, whether it was throughout Canada, throughout the United States, and together we went to New Zealand and Australia. I was a part of the marketing effort of Hans for his coronary health improvement program. And it was really, to me, I think the thing that I enjoyed so much about Hans, no matter where he was or whether in front of a group of strangers, he was able to stand up there and speak with the most supreme confidence in his message and what he was saying, that everybody in the room obviously had to believe what Hans was saying. There, I have a saying that my father taught me years ago, which was, be sure you leave when you're most welcome. So I'm going to make this short and precise and say that I don't think I can ever get over the loss of Hans. He was such a treasured friend, and I certainly give my best regards and kindest remembrances to Lily and the children. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, AJ, for putting this program on. I really appreciate being included. Yes, Hans and I were good friends for a long time. I first met him, I think, about the same year that Dr. Esselstyn did, I think 1993, if I recall. And my meeting with Hans was really special because at that particular point in time, I had been in the business I'd been in for quite a number of years, and I was getting quite a lot of pushback at the same time. And it seemed like from the scientific community in my area, not everybody was very happy with what I was talking about. But Hans came along, and here he was starting to talk about, how do you serve people? How do you serve communities in a way of health? And I found that really refreshing because some of you may find it surprising to know that the distance between sometimes the formal scientific community and the public is a little bit too much. And so Hans brought a face along with him, and humor, a sense of humor and love for his fellow humans. And I really like that because we were talking mostly about the same thing, as I recall. One of the first things that I think my interactions with him was, thanks to Hans, was his inviting me to speak to some of his CHIP programs, to be the sort of graduation speaker, if you will. And so I had a chance to hear Hans speak and meet learn about his program and that sort of thing. It was right up my alley. I thought it was really great. And I really liked the way that he himself talked all about that, clearly as something for others, not just a self-promotion kind of thing. He was really giving, if you will. And I really appreciate that. We interacted in a number of different places. He introduced me to some of his Adventist friends. I gave a number of lectures, different Adventist groups around the West Coast and Canada and elsewhere. So finally, he put on a cruise in the Caribbean. He and Lily did, I'm sure. And that was very special. It was an opportunity to spend about a week or so there. And I really liked it also because Lily, his wonderful wife, was there. And she actually livened the place up with her piano playing. Lily, I think you're listening here, and I have to tell you that was very inspirational for you playing at that time. I eventually, wandered around giving lectures that I think he had something to do with arranging. And I really appreciated that for him. He was so sincere in what he was doing and really wanted to gather people around and have chats about that kind of thing. Most recently, we talked when he was in the Caribbean and he was coming home from a lecture to, he said, about 1,600 people, as I recall. And he had actually just gotten, he was the first one I heard from about this, but my second book called Whole. And if any of you are familiar with that concept, I told there, it really has to do with, everything working together and, at the cellular level, the body level, so forth and so on. It's a philosophy that speaks to communities. Hans was so excited about that. He gave his lecture on it and had to tell me, how he went through the book and quite a long conversation. And so we really hit it off. And the concept of whole, I think meant so much to him because that's the way he was. That was his nature, talking about everybody and making sure they got the main message. So I couldn't be more delighted than to be included, in this ceremony because Hans really was a very close friend. In fact, unfortunately, we were scheduled to be lecturing at the end of this month in Romania. And he's the one, I think, in large measure, is the one had something to do with arranging for that. So it's a really much too early loss, but he's left behind really a reputation and a contribution that I'm sure we all can remember. He for me, as I say, go back to myself, I'm kind of in science, a formal area, if you will, to a great extent. Hans was opening up the face of the humanity, face of the world, and just making sure everybody got to hear about this particular idea. So again, AJ, thanks so much. And Lily, I presume you're here and I really wish you well. Thank you very much.
After I'd write a newsletter, it was always Hans who called me up and told me that he agreed with this and maybe didn't agree with that, and always gave me some very helpful and positive feedback. And as you say, he was the host, and if you would bear with me, I'll play you a few moments of that presentation. It was I'd have to say it was the highlight in my life in terms of awards and recognition from my colleagues, was to receive the fourth Lifestyle Achievement Award, or a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And Hans was there on stage with me. And I'll play a few minutes of that for you. A couple of things that I remember about Hans. One, I went to, I believe it was Evanston, I don't know, someplace in Illinois. It was kind of a blur because I was around lecturing so much across the country at that time. But he would invite me to talk to the CHIP group. And I would fly in, I'd do a presentation in the evening. But I remember one evening, he said, "John, I want you to talk about menopause. I got a whole bunch of ladies here who want to hear about menopause and diet." And I said, I will. And then I forgot. Oh, he didn't know what to do, because he promised these ladies that he was going to have Dr. McDougall deliver, and I didn't. And I still feel bad to this day that I didn't deliver for him. And then the other thing I remember is we used to have these advanced study weekends, and all the people that are on here, Dr. Campbell, Esselstyn, AJ, and Wayne Dysinger, and so on, all of them have been guests at my advanced study weekend, where I brought, I thought, the most important people in the world. I mean, all the way from Denmark, I'd bring people in to give presentations. And I always remember that, after I made the arrangements, in fact, I didn't even complete the arrangement with Hans. He was always there saying, Lily really plays a good piano, and I'd like her to play a piano at your weekend. And so we had the added entertainment of Lily playing the piano in the lobby of the advanced study weekends. And we had a great time. And again, Hans and I were close and had a lot of mutual respect for each other. So he will be missed. I will consider him a strong supporter of all the ideas that he and I share to be important, particularly the welfare of people and the fact that it's really the food. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to play a few minutes of a couple of times that I had with Hans, because I don't really think that I could in any way tell you a story as well as he could. So what we'll do is we'll put these two links so that you can watch the entire presentation. They last about half an hour, one of them, and the other one about 20 minutes. And so if you like what I'm presenting for you, you can go on, you can watch the rest of the tape. But I do have to warn you, this is Hans Diehl that you're going to see here in just a minute. So if you're not prepared, it's time to turn the computer off. But if you are, Hans is going to come right in your living room and talk to you.
I am Dr. Hans Diehl. I have a doctor in health science, and I am epidemiologically trained to look at the disease epidemic around the world, which is largely centered on non-communicable diseases, or as we say today, chronic diseases. And so my concern has been to contribute to a velvet revolution in medicine. Velvet because it's smooth. Velvet because it's bloodless. But nevertheless, we need to do everything we can to change the system that we have right now, because the system that we have right now is not cutting the epidemic by attacking the causes of these problems. We're very good in symptomatic treatment. We can make people feel better, and sometimes there's a place for that, of course. We are very good when it comes to episodic diseases. We have some trauma, we have some fractures. Of course, that's not the time to eat broccoli, right? But when it comes to 84% of the money that we spend in our society today on health care, 84% goes to chronic diseases, and we have no really good indication that we're really turning this disease around. We don't have cures for most of these chronic diseases because they relate to our lifestyle. How we eat, how we drink, do we get enough sleep, do we have a supportive network, stress management. These are the kind of things. Getting enough sleep, being a nice person, having an altruistic orientation towards life, trying to serve others. Once you have these things in place, once you have this philosophy, and it's underpinned by a very simple diet of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes and maybe a few nuts, then I think, and you perhaps bring some exercise in, then you have the prescription for a happier and longer life. And that's what I'm all about.
I had these advanced study weekends, and I knew that we wouldn't all last forever. I certainly never predicted that Hans would be one of the first of us in the team to go, but it seems to be the case. But I put these people on record, as you just saw in the first interview with Hans, because they had to be remembered forever, not just this generation, but for future generations. And he's one of the people that I never wanted the world to forget because of his tremendous contributions. And so it's been a real honor, real privilege, real opportunity to be friends with Hans Diehl.
Well, hello, and thank you, Ajay. Thank you so much. This is very interesting how two people here, Dr. McDougall and you, it's through both of you who I met Dr. Hans Diehl. I was at one of the advanced study weekends, which I used to attend, didn't want to miss any of them. And of course, Dr. McDougall I consider you one of my dear friends. We did so many webinars together. And I remember that AJ was in one of those advanced study weekends. And I remember she saying, "You've got to meet Lily Diehl because she is a pianist, and so are you." And of course, my first thought was, well, she's probably a good pianist, a wife of a doctor who just likes to play a little piano here and there. Little did I know that Lily Diehl was one of the most amazing concert pianists that I had ever met. So I met both of them at the advanced study weekend. I met Dr. Hans Diehl and Lily Diehl. Dr. Hans Diehl and I almost share a birthday with 1 day apart. And I had the unique privilege of knowing them and spending time with them at their home in Loma Linda, California. Eventually, Lily and I formed a piano duo called the Diehl-Tolosa Duo, and we gave concerts together several times. We rehearsed at their home. I shared meals with them, had wonderful conversations in the garden. Dr. Diehl loved to prepare breakfast. That was one of his favorite things to do when he had guests, and I guess every day. I stayed at their house, and Dr. Diehl was so kind. What can I say? Everybody has said this, but this is the thing that just stays with me, his kindness. He would take me to the university and show me around. One evening, he even invited me to say a few words about my story in one of his classes. And of course, I was nervous and honored to be talking in one of his classes. Through them, Lily and Hans, at a concert I gave with Lily, I also met another dear friend of mine, Sheida Soleimani, with whom I have also done cooking webinars, and now we have written a book. I had a huge privilege in 2016, I believe it was, to travel with the Diehls to Lithuania, where Dr. Diehl had an instrumental part in giving these lectures, and to many influential doctors and government officials. So we traveled together. Lily and I gave a couple of concerts. Dr. Diehl was always so kind in giving compliments, and I just wanted to share because I found these pictures the other day. That's one of the posters of one of the concerts that we gave in Lithuania with Lily. Here is one of the pictures with her. Just a lovely lady, and I know I know you're here, Lily. I miss you. I miss our times together. And this is a wonderful dinner we've had with friends in a little restaurant in Lithuania. So I have treasured, I just have memories and memories to treasure, and it is going to be very difficult to get used to the idea that Dr. Diehl is not with us, at least not in physical form. He was kind and he was full of energy. I just admired. It was contagious, the energy he had, the passion that he had for lifestyle medicine, the caring, and something that was very touching was his strong belief in God. So today I chose music, which by the way, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor in musical arts and in piano performance. And so for me, music is the most perfect language. Actually, music is the only art that is mentioned in the Bible as being in heaven. It's a perfect language, it's a universal language, and I cannot think of a better way to honor Dr. Diehl than with music. I will play about 3 minutes of music in honor of Dr. Diehl. I chose a German composer because, of course, we all know that was Hans Diehl's background. And I chose one of the major pillars of music, Johann Sebastian Bach, a German composer from the Baroque period. Bach was also a strong believer, passionate, inspiring, kind, and a brilliant mind. He usually finished his compositions at the bottom of the manuscripts with a phrase, "To the glory of God." That's how he usually finished writing music. So I'm going to play something that is called Prelude and Fugue. The prelude is about 1 minute long, and the fugue is about 2 minutes long. The prelude, I chose this for a reason, for a specific reason. The prelude is full of energy. It is rhythm and harmony. There is no melody in this little prelude. And the rhythm is very energetic, just like Dr. Diehl was. Both elements were present in Dr. Diehl's life. Energy, rhythm, and then harmony. He did give you that sense of peace when you met him, and harmony. Then, following that, there is the fugue. The fugue is brilliant, it's balanced, it's joyful. Many times when I have taught piano to doctors or neurosurgeons, they have compared Bach's music to doing brain surgery. Everything has to be carefully planned and carefully executed. Very fine motor skills are needed for both, for doing surgery and for playing these fugues. And an analytical mind is needed. One wrong note, one wrong movement, and the perfect creation falls apart. So I really cannot think of any other music better to play in honor of Dr. Diehl than playing this little bit of music. And with that, I will leave you. So here we go.
You're up, Pastor John.
Thank you so much, Chef AJ. We love you so dearly, and your husband and this wonderful community that we're a part of. It was in 2009 that my wife, Susan, who's a registered dietitian, got her RD through the Loma Linda School of Nutrition. We invited Dr. Hans Diehl to come and be the keynote speaker at the beginning of this, or one of the speakers that evening. Susan's father is Dr. Andrew Heinel, and he was the dean of the School of Public Health at Loma Linda. And it was there that he and Dr. Diehl worked together and had become very good friends. And so Dr. Diehl very kindly came out and spoke, and Chef AJ, you had come and you had made such an amazing presentation at this cooking school. And I remember that you said that it had been one of your dreams to meet Dr. Diehl. And he came and he spoke, and somehow or other, by the time you left Redondo Beach, headed back to your home, and he left Redondo Beach going back to Loma Linda, he had called you and put a message on your voicemail. And I think that was the beginning of, or near the beginning of, this wonderful relationship that you had with him. And he spoke many times at the health classes that we offer to our South Bay community. I asked him to come and preach at our church one time, and he said, Pastor Jensen, I would love to do that. He said, but it's a two-part package. He said, I'll come and preach for you, but he said, I want Lily to play a musical feature as part of the church service, and then I want her to give a concert, a 1-hour concert at 2:00. And we were overjoyed to have both Dr. Diehl and Dr. Lilly come and play. And he was so enthusiastic and so passionate, so encouraging. He said, look, you're a small church of a couple hundred people here in Redondo Beach, but you're making a big splash in the community. Keep it up. And he came over and he brought all of his wonderful books, and we purchased enough of those books to give out. Everybody got a copy of one of his books. And the impact that he's had on our lives, Susan and me personally, and the impact that he's had here in the South Bay part of Los Angeles community is an incredible legacy. And we are all so deeply indebted to his love and his passion and his commitment and his interest. And so thank you so much for hosting this and allowing us. And Dr. Diehl, we will always love you. We will miss you forever. And Dr. Lily Diehl, we love you, and our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family.
Good morning, everyone. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces on the chat here from the physicians. Good to see Dr. Leselston again, who I traveled many miles there in Kansas. I remember Dr. Leselston saying, why are there so many churches out here? Then, you know, Dr. McDougall as well. I remember putting him in front of like 300 ministers, and he goes, what do I say to all these ministers? And I showed him this chapter in Daniel chapter 1, and he just did a great job. And, you know, Hans would open up so many hearts and minds to the need for health and for hope and healing. And then he introduced our church to so many of these wonderful people that have already spoken, that then would come and open up even more avenues. So I started working with Hans in 1993, and we launched, you know, Chip, first of all, with his video series. Then he would come, and we started being able to help people in many different venues. I remember once one of the guys went through who was a Boeing engineer, and he got so much better that he said, you got to talk to my company. Well, I didn't realize how big Boeing was. He reminded me the night before we went to the Boeing Corporation, there were 8 physicians that came in the room to listen to our presentation, Dr. Phil Mills and myself, and we had been hosting these CHIP programs. And the Boeing Corporation says, we would like you to do this for our company. We have 30,000 employees. We said, we can't do it. But anyway, Hans just opened up all kinds of opportunities, not only around our community of about 400,000, but around the world. And then through the avenue of the CHIP Association, the CHIP program, CHIP Adventist Association, I see Dina and George Guthrie are on here, and Greg Dr. Steinke and others, and that I've seen for so many years. When we came together at CHIP Summits for the Adventist CHIP Association for about 11 years in a row, Hans and that group asked me to speak for their services. And it was always so exciting to see what was happening and hear what was happening around the world, to see how people's lives were being improved. and the quality of life being improved. So two things I want to say here, and then maybe just a funny story. The basic message every single time we got together, and Hans and I would talk about every time, is that we want to help people improve their life, the quality of their life, and the length of their life. And I never would have expected Hans to leave us this soon, but that was his passion. And secondly, the other thing is he'd say, look, we don't want people not to just die. We don't want them to die eternally. So we want them to have life and eternal life. We want them to not experience death that soon. It's certainly not what the Bible talks about as the second death. And, the other thing I wanted to say is that Hans helped me personally in many ways, just like many of you have said. And I'll just leave you with two last things. First of all, I remember we would go, and I would put together all kinds of media events, all different types of television stations, all kinds of venues, and we'd be busy from dawn till dusk. And I would try and also keep these other doctors who came out very busy. And one day we were going, I was new to the CHIPS concepts. I wasn't really into the CHIP concepts, to be honest, but I thought, man, my church is doing this, I better learn about it. So I was out walking, running to these different television stations, and he had these props. He had these chocolate covered peanuts, and I can't remember what else, this junk food, he'd be talking about, you could eat this many potatoes or just this many potato chips. And he had all these, great illustrations. And one of them had these chocolate covered nuts. And I got to admit, man, I was looking at those nuts and I was going, man, I would love to eat those nuts. But of course, we had to use them of all these places. Finally, we get done. I thought we were done, right? So we get done and Hans goes, I don't know. He went into some place to get, I don't know, some bananas or something. And we were all done for the day. And I couldn't resist anymore. I ate all the chocolate nuts. And I ate the nuts, and he comes back in and I hide the box, because I didn't want Dr. Diehl to see that I had eaten the chocolate nuts. And then we get a phone call, and it's from another television station. And they said, could you come? And we want to interview you as well. And Hans goes, where are the nuts? We got to use the nuts again. And I had to confess. I said, Dr. Diehl, I wanted to eat just one of the nuts, but I ate them all. And he just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And he didn't condemn me or anything, but I think I probably would not be alive without Hans Diehl, because he did, help me improve my health right from them. One little other funny study, I think it was Dr. Esselstyn, he might remember this, but he came one time and we were on a television show, and I got him on because he had been an Olympic rower. So we got on this program, and somehow the host said, well, where do you get your milk? This was in the middle of Kansas. Where do you get, your calcium if you don't have milk? And he says, well, you want to have a high level of calcium in your milk? I think the highest level is in rat milk. Oh, man, I couldn't believe it. And the lady was shocked, and I got all these phone calls. I tell you what, the people that came because of knowing Hans, they just totally electrified the whole community and my church and many, many other churches and people around the world. Now let me just close by saying, a big thanks to Lily as well. And I see Byron there and Carmen. So many years we saw you growing up. We're proud of you. We're proud of what you've done. I was so impressed by Lily, where she was teaching, like, I don't know, 10 people at the same time, 14 people with all those pianos. And she's always been so gracious. And I know it's a big loss, and we love you very much. And then I would just say, my last calls and communication with Dr. Diehl were really where he was calling me out of concern for someone he knew had a tough diagnosis, and he wanted me to reach out to them. And we hadn't connected for a couple of years, but man, he called me 5 or 6 times, and he was praying for that person. and he just had a heart for that person. And I just realized, you know what? He didn't want us all to just live and have quality of life here. He wanted us to live forever. And so I hope we can tap into that. I hope this is not the last time we see each other or hear from each other. And I know that was Hans's heart as well. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. Chef AJ, thank you so much for putting this on. It's an honor to be among all of you today. Unfortunately, I'm on a car from Connecticut to New York City right now. I was just visiting a sick relative in Connecticut, so I wasn't able to log in from my usual laptop. But I just wanted to reminisce a little bit. You know, we started Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. By the way, that's the other Rochester. This is Rochester, New York. We started the Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute in 2015 for the sole purpose of running CHIP programs, and it was all because of Hans that we got started, because that was the only reason for our existence. We now have about multiple other programs, and we do CME and lots of other things. But really, if it hadn't been for Hans and CHIP, we wouldn't have gotten started. It was such a pleasure to work with him. He was always an incredible gentleman, and I learned so much from him. And I learned so much by running CHIP programs, what it's like to be in a group of people talking about health issues. And I couldn't have done it without that experience. And now that we've pivoted to Zoom, we've all become Zoom experts. We've reached thousands of people with our own programs, but it all goes back to Hans and the CHIP program. So thank you so much, Hans, and thank you everybody else.
Well, I would say it's a pleasure to be here, but it's an honor just to have the opportunity to speak about Hans. And I'll go back just a little bit of time before I go forward as it relates to I apologize, my camera. This is what happens when you're moving between things. Let me switch things real quick to my camera just for purposes of this.
That's okay. While you do that, I'll just say, Pastor Don made me realize Hans had a lot of really funny sayings, like the bigger your snacks, the bigger your slacks. Eat food from a plant, not food manufactured in a plant. Eat food as grown. So here you come back, I hope.
All right. Yeah, well, my voice is here. I apologize with my camera. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but I'm going to go ahead and talk either way. I do apologize. You know, one of the things, and this is what technology does at times, but my first recollection of Hans really goes back quite a while before I ever met him. And I would hear about the CHIP program kind of growing up and going to church and seeing what was done and the events that were put on. And it was amazing. But I think the thing that sticks out most in my mind, Hans is one of two individuals that are close to my heart. Obviously, S is another one, and Hans is one as well. And when I started down this venture of tangential from interventional cardiology to really addressing the whole person, I remember Hans giving me a call. It was Hans and Dr. S gave me a call. And I don't think either of them knew they were giving me a call to really lend support. I didn't know them. I had never met them physically in person. And this was his compassion just to kind of say, hey, listen, you have the potential to do good things and to reach people as a cardiologist. And just those words of encouragement meant so much to me. We'd see each other, always embrace warmly, like we had known each other for years. We shared a love for German chocolate cake. My mom would make me a German chocolate cake as well. So when I tasted Chef AJ's cake, I was in love in those moments there. And so I'll never forget those moments when he would just call me to lend words of encouragement when I attended his lectures too as well. And it was just powerful, just his impact and just his energy, just his calming effect on people. The way that he just, there's an old saying that, people won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And he definitely had that impact of resonating to that we all remember the warmth that he left us and how he made us feel. And that's what's so powerful. And fast forwarding back to what you mentioned about the going away, I'll tell you, it was a rough little stretch for me clinically and preparing for different lectures and talks and different projects. And AJ, I appreciate you so much because you said, you gotta go. I want you and Hans to be there together. And I came and brought my wife. And that was the best time I've ever had. Not because of the food, and the food was great. It was because I got to know Hans in a different way. I learned about his passion for those who are in disparate communities. I learned about his journey. And many of the greats inside this movement went through similar struggles in which people cast them off. They put them out and didn't think they were practicing and doing things appropriately. And he shared with me many of those stories. And I realized, man, I have no excuse. There's so much more that I need to do. When I left from being with him, I felt just inspired that, listen, look at all the hurdles that these greats have overcome to deliver the message of lifestyle. I have zero excuse when I have resources at my disposal to do what they've done. And so it was such a blessing to be with Hans and with Lily during that time. And I was so saddened to hear. And I think this is what's important for us to all to recognize, is the fact that life is short. We have to remember how we treat people. That yes, it's about nutrition, it's about lifestyle, but it's how we empathize with people, how we treat them, how we choose to forgive and uplift them, how we choose to love them, how we choose to enact all those principles. And I can honestly say his life was one well lived, because he left an impression. He planted seeds that goes beyond his core family into many individuals around the world. And I'm so thankful that I'm one of those plants that's hopefully growing from the seeds that he planted inside me. So thank you so much for the opportunity to say a few words about Hans.
Thank you, AJ. Sounds like Dr. Batiste and I are both calling in from the hospital today. So you can see how important Hans is for all of us. And thank you, Chef AJ, for putting this together. This is such solace to be able to hang out with so many people who loved and honored Hans in the same way that me and my family have done. And also, I want to say to Dr. McDougall, thank you so much for showing that clip. To see Hans again, like in all of his enthusiastic glory, was a wonderful thing. So I'm definitely going to be watching that whole one later. So I just wanted to say that when I think about Hans, I think the trait that best describes him is his dedication to service. You know, service to God, but also service to his family, and definitely service to people all over the place, everywhere, whose lives were both improved and their health was restored through the CHIP program that he built, as well as many of the other lifestyle medicine initiatives that he participated in. And I always kind of think of him as a humble, but also passionate warrior for health and vitality and longevity. And one of his most defining characteristics that I think is sort of sets him apart is his incredible generosity with his time, with his advice, and with his mentorship for so many of us in the lifestyle medicine movement, so many people in his spiritual community. I mean, I've really been blessed to know Hans for many years and to count both he and Lily among my friends. So he made a huge impact on me and my whole family. Lily, you as well. It's been such a blessing to be a part of your world and your family. And we're so grateful the time that we've been able to spend together, and look forward to many, many more years of remembering Hans, honoring Hans, and continuing to carry on the work that he started.
Hello, I'm Nan Simonson, and I'm a health coach with Dr. Deisinger. And when Chef AJ asked how I met him, Dr. Diehl, Hans Diehl, I was a facilitator at Dr. Deisinger's for the last 5 years, lifestyle medical practice, and I facilitated the CHIP program with our patients. And so I knew who Dr. Diehl was. He was larger than life in my mind. And somebody had heard about my book, Aging Powerfully, at the Healthy Road group that is part of the Chinese Seventh-day Adventist Church, and had asked me to speak on a Sunday. And I did a talk about lifestyle as medicine. That's what my book is about, part memoir and part the pillars of lifestyle medicine. And in the audience was Hans and Lily. Can you imagine how taken I was that he had come? There were maybe 25, 30 people, and there they were. At the end, they both approached me and we had a conversation about, well, I'll say he approached me with the conversation about what he liked that I did well. Now, I was there. We've heard from so many today that are huge in the lifestyle medicine, bigger than life people. And I was I'm going to use the word nobody, not in a pitiful way, but kind of a nobody. I have this little book. Well, so I did a book signing. I wanted to give him a book. No, he insisted on paying for it. He called me the next day. He went home, read the book, called me the next day to tell me what he liked, not only about my story and how I had overcome some things, but what he liked about the way I presented the information. That's just huge. He has and has had so many people in his life that were so important, and yet he took the time to do that. He also then kept our relationship going by inviting my husband Tim and me to several things. Well, one of the things that he invited us to was a talk at that same church that he and the other Dr. Diehl did. In other words, Lily. He introduced himself as, well, she did. He's the big deal. She's the little deal. And I thought that was really cool, especially when I found out that she was a concert pianist, basically, when he met her. And they married and she was 20, 21 years old. What a couple. They are, well, what a couple, what a pair, what a person he was. They included everybody. It didn't matter status. And I so admire everything they did. Just recently, a couple of days ago, I had a chance to spend some time with Lily. She invited me over for lunch and the hot tub. Apparently, they had breakfast in the hot tub almost every morning. First thing we did when I got to the house was she showed me his life through his office, which had so many mementos in it. She is carrying on so beautifully. He would be so proud and impressed. I lost a husband after 40 years. Last week would have been their 53rd anniversary. She lost a husband after 53 years. And yet she is honoring everything he was and they were. It was so beautiful to spend time with her and know that he can, wherever he is, rest in peace because she's doing fine and she's going to spend the rest of her time, and her family will do the same, honoring this huge man. That's all I have to say. And I so appreciate him and I so honor what he has done because I'm married to the precepts of the College of Lifestyle Medicine, those pillars that basically he brought out and they are emulating. He will be part of what I do through the rest of my life. At 73, I've decided that when I get to 103, he's still going to be a part of that. That's all I have to say. And AJ, Chef AJ, thank you so much for doing this. I watched many, many videos of your interviewing Dr. Diehl. And so through your videos, I also knew who he was the moment he walked in that room the day I was speaking. So bless you all.
Well, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I must say I am deeply honored to be among such illustrious roster of people here. And I'm really a nobody in lifestyle medicine. But I want to tell you how I first met Dr. Diehl and how God brought two lives together amazingly. I was in Toronto in former years of my life. I developed a couple broadcast television studios with a friend of mine. And during those wonderful years, he let me work on a pilot project that never got off. It was kind of a lifestyle magazine, 3-segment show. And on a fundraising trip, I was down in California and visited Dr. Diehl at his home, looking to him as the possible host for this show. Well, it never got off the ground, but he did remember years ago when I left that television work and went to pastor 3 rural churches in Saskatchewan near Melfort. And I was so drawn to the idea of doing something large in the way of reaching people with a better health message. And I did something of that nature in my community, and the mayor asked me if I knew a wellness speaker, and I called Dr. Diehl and told him that she was looking for such a speaker, and we fell in there, and he was delighted to find a pastor who was interested in the subject. So after 3 months of preparation, I had him come into Melfort for a one-night stand on reversing heart disease, and 1/10 of the city came out to hear him speak. And I was smitten. 100 of those people signed up in a cooking class after, and we began a wonderful friendship. And several years later, I could never imagine that which I aspired to do, I would have a chance to do as a departmental director for the British Columbia Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, running several departments, one of which was health. And when we got launched in that, Hans Diehl came out to a camp meeting. 4,000 or 5,000 people every year, and we launched some work toward developing CHIP chapters in BC. 13 years later, 12, 13 years later, we would have, with the help of our North American team, we developed Harold Burden, health educator from Portland Adventist Medical Center, George and Dina Guthrie, Phil Mills, Don McIntosh. We banded together, and before we were done, we trained 57 of our 100 churches how to run CHIP. The last World Training Summit I had anything to do with, almost 500 came from all over North America. It was the most exciting time of my life. And that Dr. Diehl would take on a novice like me. I didn't even have an MPH degree, anything to recommend me to work with him, but we became the dearest of friends, call up one another incessantly, any time of the day, respectful times. And what a wonderful life I had. He's absolutely one of the dearest friends I've ever had in my life. And I'm so grateful to have known him. What a mentor he was. He would take me through the most amazing journeys of meeting people. Dr. Campbell still on here. I remember we had you out to one of those camp meetings. We had Dr. Caldwell, Neil Barnard, all of you wonderful people. You came, I got acquainted with you. And Hans mentored me how to do every step of the way of promoting the CHIP program. So it's just an honor here today to be here among you. Lily, thanks for allowing this to happen. I have no idea how I'm going to manage the days ahead, because I'm going to miss speaking into so much. And if I'm going to miss him that way, how much you're going to miss him. And we're really indebted to the wonderful person that he was. So many accolades from all of you. I need not repeat all of those, because I believe all of those things that I've heard. And I believe on October 31st is the date. The ACLM is going to honor Hans posthumously with the Lifestyle Achievement Award. And it's my deep honor to have been asked by Susan Benegas to produce a large banner in Hans's commemoration, and I do have that job finished fairly soon. So thank you so much for this opportunity to say a word for my beloved friend Hans. I know I'm going to see him again, and we're going to pick up right where we left off. Health isn't everything, but without it, everything is nothing. That was one of, isn't that right, AJ? That was one of his favorites.
Absolutely. You know, I appreciate what you said, Frank, because I actually was emailing Carmen, his daughter, today, and I said, if those of us that knew and loved him are this broken up, I cannot imagine how the family feels, you know, who's known him long, because he was so loved and beloved. And, you know, I actually saw him last night. It's the second time he came to me in a dream, and it was just beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing, Frank.
Yes, all the best to all of you. Let's continue on this health education journey. There are so many people out there that need our help.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Steinke, and Hans had a dramatic impact on my life. He was one of the most charismatic, confident, gregarious, and commanding people I've ever met. And his charisma and inviting spirit I found so attractive. You know, I had just become a Christian and was wanting to do something humanitarian and better with my life, and found out about CHIP. I'm from Vancouver, BC area, and so started volunteering in the CHIP programs at Langley Hospital in the Vancouver, BC area. And it just changed my life. I was a college student, didn't have any direction to my life really in terms of a career or purpose. I remember the moment when I just decided that I wanted to do lifestyle medicine the rest of my life. And we were at an alumni meeting, and we were preparing for it. It was about to start, and this big burly guy that I hadn't gotten to know that well just walks into our meeting, and he had been in a previous CHIP program. And he just comes up to me and he just like grabs me and he gives me this massive hug. And I can just feel him sobbing. And he kind of steps back and tells me this story of, you know, being the sole provider and kids in college, went to his doctor, told that he was going to lose his truck driver's license if he didn't shape up with his diabetes and hypertension and so on. And he found out about the program, went through it, and he had just come from his doctor who had given him a fresh lease on his truck driver's license, and he had got his head together. And I just saw the twinkle in his eye, and I said, you know what? I want to do this the rest of my life. And so I just thank Hans for that. And you know, in those early years, I was so excited about CHIP. I remember. Thank you, Frank, for your involvement in spreading CHIP through the British Columbia area. And I remember one summer I decided, you know what, I'm not just going to do any old regular summer job. You know, I'm a college kid. I'm going to take CHIP materials. I'm going to take Health Power and different books, and I'm going to go around selling them. And here, if you know me at all, I am not like that kind of personality, but you know, I went from alumni programs all over the place. I went door to door. I did whatever I could to sell those books. And it was awesome experience. You know, the CHIP program had a huge impact on me going to medical school. Ended up in Melinda, and Hans. I got to know Hans. In fact, I have, if you recall, these little guys here. Remember these? I don't know who has these here. We got like 4 of them. I use them like every day.
I still have mine. Yep.
These little CHIP knives. Anyways, he took me under his wing and just really started to reach out to me. He taught me all about the concept of lifestyle medicine. He would coach me. I was very shy, very kind of a retreating type of personality. He just, you know, kept urging me, giving me opportunities. Greg, go speak here, do this, speak here. and just taught me to speak more confidently. I remember him coaching me on, even if you don't have a moment to prepare, you can come up with 3 points, even on the spot. I remember him taking me into his office and showing me his like detailed organizational system of how he kept track of all his journal articles. He had them all titled, with a special numbering system, and could come up with any information on the spot with the way he had it set up. And I just remember him and Lily bringing my wife and I into their home many, many times. The walks with Brent Hildebrand, went on a number of those in those early years when I was still in good health. Oh man, just so many great memories. My master's in nutrition, I chose to do a CHIP program at the Calmesa SDA Church, and he was just cheering me on the whole time, helping me. And when we ran the first ever Loma Linda University CHIP program, which if you know some of the controversy involved with that, I thought would never happen. And that went off, was awesome. Enrolled the whole or much of the medical school in the concept, and it was just an outstanding dynamic experience. When I met my wife, one thing that kind of shocked me is when I started talking about Hans more and whatever, my wife's like, "Oh, I know Hans. I grew up with Carmen and Byron and stuff." And I was like, wow, I guess God put me with the right woman here. And she's such amazing people.
This is one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, one last story. I just want to say, Hans and Lily were going away, and I was a student, and Hans was like, "You know what? I got kind of, I don't know if I should have bought this, but I ended up buying a BMW, and I'm not sure about this, but anyways, I was wondering if you could drive my BMW while we're gone." And so that was a great memory. And just one other quick thing is, my grandfather found out about CHIP, Sherman Nagel, and he took CHIP to Nigeria, and he just started running it on television, just promoting it. He had a large influence in Nigeria. And Hans finds out later about this because my grandpa didn't manage to ask for permission. And Hans was just so gracious with my grandfather and turned it into something where they started doing a bunch of work over there as well to help people there. So thank you so much.
Welcome, Jody.
Thank you, Chef AJ, and thanks for organizing the celebration of life. I think it's very therapeutic for me, as well as many other people, I think. And when I think of Hans, I think of faith, first of all, because his faith led him in everything that he did. His family, number two, he had such a strong bond with Lily, and it was such a joy to see them both. Family, number two, he had such a strong bond. They had a beautiful family, Byron and Carmen and the grandchildren. Hans was so proud of them. And Lily and Hans supported each other in everything that they did. And even after 45 years of marriage, Hans bought flowers for Lily every week. His friends, he had so many friends from around the world, kind. He was kind to them, generous, thoughtful. He respected all people, and people respected him. Hans was brilliant. He was a trailblazer in his field. If we think back, CHIP began in 1988, 35 years ago, when lifestyle medicine was not well known at all. It was an honor for me to work for Hans. I worked for him in Rockford, Illinois for 7 years. He saw me doing a chip cooking demonstration, and my husband mentioned to him I was going to be leaving a Fortune 500 company I was working for. Well, that led to 3 or 4 interviews with Hans and another gentleman that was working for CHIP here in Rockford. And I was hired. And I got a call from this gentleman before I even started saying that he was going to be pursuing other interests and he would not be able to train me. So here I was in Rockford. I hadn't even started and I had this job. But Hans, through emails and phone calls, guided me through everything. And it worked out just fine. He would come to Rockford, Illinois, and conduct CHIP programs in person at the University of Illinois College of Medicine in the auditorium. He would do this twice a year. And he moved people, most people, as we all know, who came through CHIP had multiple chronic conditions that they were dealing with. And he moved people from despair to hope. I had the joy of watching this time and time again as he conducted these classes. He had the gift of making each person in the audience feel like he was talking directly to them, speaking to them directly. Participants went on grocery shopping tours, attended the applied nutrition workshop, which he named AKA a cooking class, because men in the who were participating in CHIP would not attend a cooking class, but they did go to the applied nutrition workshops, where we ate at one of the CHIP approved restaurants here in town. Over 5,000 people went through the program here in Rockford. And it is where the randomized trial was done that was published through Swedish American Hospital and published in the American Journal of Cardiology, was done here, as well as many other peer-reviewed medical journals. People came here and he facilitated the CHIP facilitator training workshop where people became certified to be facilitators in their community. Dr. Campbell came here, Dr. McDougall came here and spoke. Afterwards, I ended up going back to college for 2 years and became certified as a certified nutrition consultant. So that work continues, and he just, he's one of tens of thousands of people whose lives they changed. And none of these things for me would have been possible without Hans, the confidence he had in me. And he literally changed this community to be more health conscientious and a healthier community. The knives that you mentioned, Dr. Stanke, were from Solengren, the town in Germany Hans was born in. And Dr. Gregor, when you mentioning something to Hans, and rather than making a day, it was an entire weekend. He did that all the time. That if you had a suggestion or an idea, it became this grand event that was just full of life and information and so vibrant and beautiful. And that was his gift. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm Phyllis McNeil. I attended 3 CHIP program of Dr. Hans Diehl. I met Dr. Hans Diehl in March of 2021. I got released from Cedars-Sinai Hospital after almost lost my life. I got released in February 2021. Got connected with Dr. Hans Diehl and also the Zoom group that he was the clinical staff of. And I got some big results. Let me tell you. Just for the 5 months, my A1C was 15.1 in January 21. When I got connected with Dr. Hans Diehl and his clinical staff, I got my A1C down in July, just 7 months afterwards, from January to July 2021, from 15.1 to 6.6.
Wow.
Yes, and I was almost on dialysis. Had kidney failure. My lowest kidney number was a 31, but when I got into the CHIP program, it was a 58. Now today, I moved from stage 3 to stage 2. Now I'm in stage 1. but 93. My kidneys are normal. That's good news. I was on 25 medications today. I can't just do one medication. See, the silent doctors couldn't even help me. I had blood clots. I was just almost left for dead. And February 21, but God had another person out there who was going to help me. And it was Dr. Hans Diehl. He was my mentor. He looked into my background, into my website, and he knew the work I do, what I've been doing, helping people for 33 years, service of myself, and now I needed help. And boy, did God bless me with somebody like Dr. Hans Diehl, his wife, Nurse Mary Reynolds. I was a former foster child, so I had it rough in my life. But I overcome these illness. And just another thing, what happened, I had neuropathy in my feet, nerve damage to my feet. Wasn't even in the program that long. My feet was examined by my diabetic doctor in 2020 of summer 2020. By July 2021, neuropathy was gone. I had my nerves back in my feet. And another big thing happened to me. My eyesight, my vision in December of 2022, my vision, I used to wear glasses for 44 years for night driving. At night, I couldn't get caught without glasses. My eyes are 20/20. I don't need any more prescription. I don't need any glasses. I saw my doctor. My eyes reversed. And then I couldn't hardly hear. I have to have a hearing device. And December 2022, I got my hearing back. I can hear now. I can see. That's all in the Bible. And then I used to walk with a walker from 2017 all the way up until this year. I let go of my walker. I started walking without my walker. Not only did I start walking out on my walker, I had another reversal. I started jogging. I didn't even have that, and I didn't even know I would be able to jog. I started jogging May the 23rd of this year. That was good. Then my cholesterol is coming down. Let's see what else happened. The big thing happened that Dr. Hans Diehl knew when I did the CHIP program. He said, your heart is reversing. My congested heart failure has reversed. Thank you, Dr. Epstein, because that's all Dr. Hans Diehl talked about. How he told me about you, about reversing heart. My heart has reversed, and it reversed on July the 25th of this year. Can't believe it. I got a good heart. And what else? I mean, Dr. Hans Diehl, he has helped me so much. And he's gone up to heaven, but his spirit would always be in my heart. And I'll never forget that, because I will continue my journey of serving others like I did before I got really sick. And let's see what else happened. I have now 3 lifestyle medical doctors. One is at my fingers office, Dr. Linda. I have a cardiologist, Dr. Mary, Dr. Palmer. It's my lifestyle medicine doctor. And I got another one. I'll be seeing her for the first time this Thursday. All because of I'm changing all my doctors. As I get rid of the doctors that can't help me, I'm getting lifestyle medical doctors because they're doing what's the right thing to do to get people well. I'm very educated regarding nutrition. I feel like I got a PhD in nutrition.
I don't mean to cut you off. This is a beautiful story, and we thank you for sharing. But if we could try to limit to 2 minutes, just because we have so many more people. But thank you so much, Phyllis. Your story is very, very inspiring, and we know how much you cared for Hans. So thank you for sharing.
Can I just say one more word? My weight is going down. I'm still morbidly obese, but I'm not worried about it because the weight's going to drop off like my conditions rapidly. I still got more conditions, but I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. I pretty much, everybody echoed the same thing I want to say already, so save my time. I want to bring out one thing very important. Just the day after I received a message from Lily about Dr. Hansi was hospitalized, I have this feather on my driveway, and then the feather followed me to my garage, and I pick it up, and that remind me of Dr. Hans Diehl. Went to 2014 when I attended my first ACOM conference, and I didn't know who he was. I know he was surrounded by so many people. He had this talk, and he say, be very gentle like a feather. So that remind me of him. I think that one thing he taught me a lot is the spirituality. Every time it's just like when he came to Rochester, Minnesota, which is the Mayo Clinic big town, Mayo Clinic town, and then he encouraged me as a CHIP facilitator, to do what is right, to the people, be gentle as a facilitator. So with his encouragement, I established a nonprofit organization with my husband, and we both have a private practice under Mayo Clinic's wings in this town. Dr. Diehl came to our first Community of Wellness Symposium in Gala, and so he every time when we step out the car to go to the presentation, he always hold my hand and he say, stop, we need to pray because this is God's plan, not my plan. Also, he made a record at a Mayo Clinic that we arranged him to conduct the first lifestyle medicine grand round. And the chef, he told the chef that he, everything would need to be vegetarian, vegan. He said, well, Mayo Clinic Palmer House is well known for steak. But chef made that exception very beautiful, 40 meals, all vegan, vegetarian. The chef continued to prepare for our gala just past April. Because of him, the CHIP program actually has been growing. We gain a lot more friends, physician friends from Mayo Clinic and local healthcare providers. He constantly contact me, just encouraging me because he always liked to use a story. I'm not Christian, but he taught me a lot. The David versus Goliath. So right now, we have a mayor from the Rochester, Minnesota, and the governor's the support to promote lifestyle medicine. He changed a lot of people's life. So he planted the seeds. And we really appreciate how much he and Lily and his family impact international wide. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, AJ, for having this and doing this. And I was in Hans and Lily's home in June of this year, and we were having a meal. And I said, wow, I found this person on Facebook, and I proceeded to tell them about you. And Hans was like, I know her. She's a friend of mine. So I met Hans and Lily when I was 12 years old. So it's been over 43 years. And our connection started off with piano. And we just kept in touch throughout all of these years. And so I benefited from learning about lifestyle medicine as a child. And also went on 3 of the CHIP cruises with Hans and Lily. And then they have had me in their home numerous times for extended lengths of time. And because of that, I've been able to see the everyday simplicities of what it looked like to have a loving marriage. And Hans and Lily just taught me so much about what it looked like to have a loving marriage. And Hans would tell me how he would stack the dishes for Lily, like all the plates together, all the bowls, etc., so that the job would be easier. And he did so many little tiny things like that just really benefited their marriage. And I saw disagreements every now and then, and they were just playful, really, when they had a disagreement. And it just taught me so much about what it meant to be one in a marriage. And I had the privilege of traveling with them to Costa Rica. And when we landed, we went to a restaurant to eat. And there wasn't really anything on the menu that fit within the choices that we all wanted to make. And so Hans asked the waiter, and you know how he speaks in his just such a fluent, beautiful way. And so he asked them, do you think that there's something that the chef could do, just a very special, and he just basically described and asked them to allow the chef to sort of work his magic and, do whatever would fit into the parameters of what Hans had described. And they brought out the most beautiful grilled pineapple dish with beautiful sides. And it was just such a lovely experience to see him work his magic like that in that restaurant. And, what I would have to share what I'm sharing now just barely breaks the surface of the depth that I've experienced from knowing Hans and Lily. And, I would go walking with Hans on the behind the hills in Loma Linda. And whenever I sat at their table, it was always just simple food fit for a king. And Hans always made sure that there were herbs as, decorations, and everything was just always presented so beautifully. He lived what he taught. And so my heart is so full from knowing them, and I just look forward to continuing my friendship with Lily. And losing Hans absolutely was too soon and too early. And I know so many people shared so many things that I've experienced with Hans as well. And I just thank you for letting me share.
Hi, this is Mary Chan Reynolds, and a lot of people know me from the CHIP program back in Loma Linda University, and especially Greg Steinke and Dina and George Guthrie. Hi to you guys, and it's wonderful to be in the CHIP organization. And I agree, Hans has a dynamite personality that he just full of energy, and he has a sense of humor. He has so much to share, especially his stories, how it developed, how he got into the CHIP organization and getting all the publicities out there in various places. And it was really neat to be part of the CHIP organization and go to the annual conferences all together and meet all the different CHIP facilitators and the training session. And you just feel like family. And one thing I remember, these video recordings, being a facilitator, Dr. Lau, you are true that we can really be spreading all this, and we have CHIP in our heart always. And I've been helping with a support group here with Vernita and Betty, and just following Hans at the last meeting that we had with the U-Turn program. We met wonderful people like Phyllis and Old School, and having lifestyle changes in their life. And I'm going to let Old School tell about a little part of him, but it's amazing how lifestyle has changed. But anyway, it's wonderful to have this done. Chef AJ, I've known you for many years when you were doing the flip-flops performance in our annual meeting there for the CHIP. And to see your weight loss was amazing. So again, thank you for organizing this and to have this special for the Diehl family.
Hi, I'm from New Zealand, calling from New Zealand right now, and Hans was very special to me as well. I'm probably not that important in the scheme of things, but I do love health ministry and trying to help and encourage people to do the best that they can. And I'm hearing the same thread from everybody, that Hans treated them as if they were the only ones in the world that mattered to him. And Lily, I just can't imagine what it must be like for you. I know you guys were madly in love with each other. I saw it over and over again. And I can't imagine the pain that you're feeling. And so my love to you all, your family, and to everybody here. Thank you for sharing. It just brought me even closer to Hans, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again. And thank you, AJ.
I was in Dr. Diehl's last program, and man, he's going to be missed. What I loved about him most was that he didn't see color, he didn't see economical status, he didn't see all these things that trip most people up, and the fact that he loved us beyond just the health. He really cared about the person who you were and who you were becoming. And so to get a personal phone call from this renowned, amazing Barnabas kind of man, he was a father figure to me in a very short amount of time. He was an influencer. He was a friend. And I didn't even get to know him that well. But just in the time that we spent in the program, I lost 13 pounds. My not diabetes, but my hypertension, high cholesterol, everything really reversed. I was a real full-blown skeptic. But what he did and who he was not just for the soul, but it was for the body, mind, and spirit as well. And so I thank God for him and Lily, and thank God for all the stuff that he has done for us as a whole. And so if we really want him to live on, myself included, let him live inside of us and through us, everything that he poured inside of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chef AJ. My name again is Betty, and I'm a social worker. My friend and I started a support group called Healthy Road Lifestyle. Our group provides education and support about the importance of a whole food, plant-based diet. Dr. Diehl heard about our group and came along to support us. He became a friend and a mentor. He often attended our meetings and spoke to our group, and he just took the group to a whole new level. He impacted my life as well as the lives of our participants. The things that stood out to me was his knowledge, and he was such an amazing and engaging speaker. And not only that, like people have said, he was such a caring man. He was such a great man, and he was a man of faith who led by example. The Bible says they shall know you by your love. And he was so loving and gave of his time so generously. A couple of times this year, he called me up and said that he knew someone who was having some health challenges. So together we would meet at this individual's home, and he would talk to them about their diet, about eating whole foods. And he invited me to come along so that I could share with them information about the Jump Start and to be a support to those individuals. And so he often discussed with us as a group about the importance of service over self. And he lived that out so eloquently. The fact that he would give house calls and help individuals whose health was struggling just blew me away. And I'm just so grateful to God that my path crossed with Dr. Diehl. And I really miss him a great deal. And I will miss all the work that we did as a group together with him. And so I just want to thank you, Chef AJ, for this celebration of his life. And I just want Lily to know that you and your family are in my thoughts and prayers. And I just thank you for this opportunity to just share my time with Dr. Diehl. He's just an amazing man. Thank you so much.
I met Dr. Diehl about several months after receiving some very disturbing news. I was told in October of 2021 that I had prostate cancer. And when I was told by the urologist, I asked him, I said, well, what can I do about it? And he suggested 3 options: surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation. He said, what would you like to do? I said, whoa, slow down. I said, man, you just hit me with news like this and you're looking for an immediate response. I said, I'm unable to do that for you right now. I said, if anything, I'm gonna get a second opinion. I need some time to think about this. Over the course of this time, in May of 2022, 7 months later, at church, I ran into a flyer at church, and I picked it up, and it was about a CHIP program, which I'd never heard of, or Dr. Diehl. I went to the pastor, asked him about it, and it said it had a limited number of spaces. And I told my pastor, said, Pastor, I gotta do this. And it said chronic diseases. I had no idea what a chronic disease was. But when I walked out to my truck to put the program in my truck, I was reading it, and one of the chronic diseases it highlighted was prostate cancer. I raced back in. I said, Pastor, I got to get involved with this now. He said, when the school, it'll be a couple of weeks. I said, no, we got to do this now. I said, I need to register now. I need to be in that class. I don't want it to fill up on me. Anyway, that class started May the 28th of 2022. And what you guys don't know is I lost my father from prostate cancer in 1989. And I found out, visiting my brother in November of 2021, that my brother and 3 of my cousins, my mother's sister's children, had prostate cancer. And they were all telling me which way I needed to go and stuff like that. I ran into Dr. Diehl's program. I took it to heart. I dotted every I and crossed every T. The program ended August. It started May the 28th of 2022. It went to August the 3rd of 2022. I had my second biopsy in November of 2022. And from the same urologist, I had a total reversal in my prostate cancer. I didn't have to do chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery like any of my predecessors did. And as you can see, that I'm still with you. So I feel through the grace of God that it was a blessing through His grace to meet Team Diehl, because I don't see just Dr. Hans. He had a co-conspirator in his program, and that was Miss Lily Diehl. And I love them both so much. I don't have any degrees. I don't have any diplomas. I don't have any special recommendations or credits to my name, but through them, he's had me come out and share my testimony with others. And if there's anyone out there, all I can tell you is I'm one of the 110,000 recipients of the program, successful participants of the program. And I'd like to thank Team Diehl for all that you guys have done to me and been for me. Thank you very much for allowing this to happen. You did, Chef AJ. Thank you so much.
So I'm Roger Greenlaw, retired clinical professor emeritus at the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Rockford. And 23 years ago, our family dentist, man and wife dentists, came home from Chicago meeting with a tape in hand, a little audio tape, and they said, we heard this guy, Hans Diehl, talk at the Dental Society meetings about health of the teeth and mouth with this program. And they said, we couldn't get in the room, hundreds of people, standing room only. So we stood in the doorway and listened to this speaker, and you have got to hear this. So I listened to the tape and I called him up, and he said, well, I'm in a meeting in Ohio and I can come tomorrow and tell you about it. And so he did. We had him present introductory program at Swedish American Hospital, one of the hospitals serving the medical education program at the medical school. And everyone was taken by it. Over the first couple of years of doing 2 programs a year, the hospital listened to our recommendation that we do a randomized controlled trial, because people, like the testimonies you've been hearing, can convince people that this program is good. But you cannot convince scientists and university professors and so on without research. So we got $1 million from Swedish American Hospital, money that came from the state of Illinois, to teaching hospitals for that year, and did a randomized controlled trial, 270 people or so in each group. And it confirmed through the analysis of Steve Aldana, who was a PhD in scientific research technology, and that got published, as Jody a few minutes ago mentioned that we had published these papers. There's now 40 papers stacked on top of that original paper. And some of the data has shown that corporations that are paying $10,000 a month for drugs to suppress the immune system for people with an immune disease they could pay for a CHIP program and have all their employees' health problems melt away. So that side of the story is really, really important. The CHIP program is now, by published data, the most studied community-based health program in America. I had one patient, woman 78 years old, needed help up and down the stairs to attend the CHIP program, who had 16 recognized labeled conditions or diseases. And in 8 to 10 weeks, they all reversed, all of them. And she walked normally. Oh, a shout out to Greg Steinke there. This program is now endorsed by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And if you go to the website, the CHIP website, and look across the top of categories you could look into the science, the papers, and they're all there. And so I just wanted us to know and remember that that Hans personally taught these programs, and the research showed that they were effective, recognized by intellectuals across the medical care fields now. And then finally, there was a program done that was comparing professional people doing a program and the results versus volunteers, trained volunteers doing the program. And the results were identical, because this is really just person to person, human to human knowledge that does the transformations, as the gentleman before me told us about prostate cancer. Thank you.
Dina Guthrie. Yes, thank you so much, Chef AJ. First time I remember seeing you, you were doing a handstand on the stage with one of our CHIP summits. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for pulling this whole thing together. My life was feeling kind of lost up in a little mountain cabin near Yosemite. I was a nurse practitioner with no place to practice at the time, and my husband was very busy in a clinic. And I was crying out to God for something to do, because I'm not one to sit around. And to make a long story short, not long after we had been there, I received 2 large boxes of CHIP materials from Dr. Hans Diehl with a return postage of $67, of which I intended to send right back to him because I hadn't ordered it. Thought, what is this about? And my mother said, don't throw that stuff away. You need to hear about what CHIP is doing. We're having dynamite results here in Wichita, Kansas. Please come and take a look. So I did. And when I came back from that program, which Amy Sherrard, Don McIntosh, Phil Mills, and all were running, I was a CHIP program ready to start, and I couldn't wait to get going. That program completely changed our little tiny mountain community. The clubhouse started serving vegetarian meals, vegan options, because our graduates were demanding them. The grocery store improved its options, and many other things happened there that were just thrilling. Not long after that, with Hans Diehl, we caught the vision that, hey, this thing needs to go to Adventist churches who can serve their communities all across North America. And with Hans's open hand, we took that thing, and with Harold Burden's support, he and I sat down and worked hard on a manual to coordinate how to run a program in a church setting. From there, thanks to Frank McMiller, we bounced up to Canada, and with Frank's encouragement, it spread all over British Columbia and then all over Canada, down into across the United States, and eventually, with Hans's invitation, we ended up going to Australia, New Zealand, England, Scotland. It was thrilling to watch this thing develop. I could not have known when I opened those boxes up there in that little cabin that the next 16 years of my life would be totally consumed with the joy of running this program. When the opportunity came for me to return to my nurse practitioner role, I said, no, it's just too exciting, not getting paid a lot for this, if anything, but it's more exciting than anything I've ever done in my life. Watching people get well and then stay well instead of just handing out medications was a total thrill. Lily and I are a day apart in age. We grew up together in the Philippines. And Lily, I'm sure you're listening in. I just want you to know that my arms wrap around you. Your music has always brought tears to my eyes of joy and great pleasure. And I hope, and I'm grateful to hear that you will continue playing. And I look forward to hearing the next time you give a concert, where if I'm anywhere around. The last time you played was in our home in Orlando, where you did a little concert just for my mother, who was about 100 years of age. I keep wanting to tell Mother about Hans. She wouldn't believe it, but both she and I, Mother's passed now at age 104, but both she and I plan to meet Hans under the Tree of Life, where we're going to be eating whole plant-based diet for the rest of eternity. And I think the next meal we'll have together will be under the Tree of Life, and I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Chef AJ, for letting me share.
Thank you, Chef AJ, so much. What a joy it's been to be with you all this morning. Hans and Lily are like family to us. We live in the greater Loma Linda area, and I just wanted to share with you, first of all, let me just say that it was my great pleasure and privilege to have taken 3 years of piano from our dear Lily Diehl. What a joy it was. We had so much fun. I was with the little kids. They all played better than I did, but we still had a great time, didn't we, Lily? Thank you, Lily, for everything that I learned and making it so much fun. You probably all remember, and maybe even have in your library, the little pamphlet book called U-Turn that Hans Diehl wrote together with Eileen Luddington. And Daryl, I saw you among the participants here, attendees. So Daryl, my heart goes out to you too. I wanted to share with you that in the greater Loma Linda area, in every Loma Linda facility, whether it's a university or the healthcare, that is one of many little books that about 150 volunteers stock in carousel racks in these facilities. And about 200,000 pieces of literature are taken in these Loma Linda facilities by people that visit from all over the United States and, yes, even the world. These pieces of literature offer hope and help. And that little book called U-Turn is always one of the 3 top pieces of literature that are taken. And so I know that Dr. Diehl is helping people far more than what any of us know. So thank you so much again, Chef AJ and Charles, for coordinating this and making this possible. God bless.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And there's so much we could say about Hans, but one of the things I'd like to center in on is his selfless, really compassion and love for others, even in those in the medical field that sometimes may not have seen eye to eye, or those that might have been seen as even competition. When Hans put out his CHIP program, and there were a lot of CHIP programs being run around the country, he sometimes was asked about references. And we had put out a book called Proof Positive that has over 2,000 scientific references in regards to heart disease and hypertension and a lot of diabetes, a lot of the things he would talk about. And in a selfless way, he'd say, if you want to, get all those references, get Dr. Nedley's book, Proof Positive, it will have them all, which was very kind of him to do that. And then when we put out our mental health program, Depression and Anxiety Recovery, he actually invited us to the CHIP Summit, asked us to speak about that. And a lot of the CHIP leaders also ended up running depression and anxiety recovery programs in their community.
which he was very happy that they were getting not only the physical health benefits, but the mental health benefits. And very few individuals that had put out what he had done would have been showing that selfless aspect. Many would have seen it as competition. I don't want them running any other programs. You know, this is what they're supposed to do as CHIP. But Hans did not see it that way. And anything that could elevate humanity and the health of others mentally, physically, and spiritually, he was for, even though he, you know, some might have viewed it as hurting his bottom line.
Oh, thank you so much, AJ. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
I just have been listening on the live stream and thought I have to say a few words as well. I'm just so grateful, AJ, for the time you have put into hosting this incredible celebration of life for Hans. He was such a huge-hearted lifestyle medicine trailblazer. And I'm in awe of the number of lives he touched all over the world. And just shortly before he passed, he was actually mentoring lifestyle medicine physicians in Romania, helping them to put on their second lifestyle medicine conference. And they are really struggling to move forward without him. And they are not alone. There are people all over the world who look to Hans as a mentor and relied on him for making lifestyle medicine a reality in whatever part of the world they were in. He just had such an immense reach. And on a sort of personal note, he was so instrumental in helping me to share my nutrition knowledge in so many countries and to work, you know, as a lifestyle medicine teacher as well. And he was always so encouraging, supportive, and he really inspired me to speak very strongly and confidently. And I just will always be so grateful for the many ways he touched my life and the lives of so many individuals. And I will always be grateful for the knives he so generously shared as well. They've been brought up before, but I have to say I hoarded them. I think I have about 15 or 20 of them. And there's just nothing that compares. I use mine every single day. I probably use 4 or 5 a day. So they're very important. And I cherish the time I got to spend with Hans, you know, in his home, Hans and Lily in their home in faraway countries on road trips. Especially when Hans wasn't driving, and many of you will know what I'm talking about when I say that. I will, you know, miss him tremendously. His beautiful smile, his infectious enthusiasm, his wonderful sense of humor. I think Hans, as we all agree, was a really remarkable human being. I feel so honored to have called him my friend. And Lily, my heart just aches for you. You were such a beautiful example of what a marriage could be. He was just a remarkable husband, father, grandfather. And I just hope that you and your family are tremendously blessed by all the loving tributes from people who adored you, who adored Hans. And he will never be forgotten.
Custoris. Thank you, AJ. What a great memorial and tribute to Hans. Everybody used words to describe him: kind, gentle, calming, caring, passionate, persistent, grateful, energetic, generous. He was a very confident, eloquent speaker. He was a great mentor to all of us and a funny storyteller. A couple quick stories. He would talk at CHIP class about holidays. You know, it's okay to put a little bit of meat on your plate, but you put it on the end, on the edge, and if it falls off, it's okay. You know, it's okay. And but he talked about at CHIP, he talked about how do you spell CHIP? And he always said HOPE, because it gives so many people hope. And all our stories today confirm that. He was a great man. And, the only thing, a couple of funny things about him, when facilitators we would hook them up to graduation, I would tell the facilitator, make sure you put him on at the end, because if you put him on at the beginning, he'll talk the whole time. And you got to limit him. And the only way you can do it is put it on the last 5 minutes, because he was so passionate about Chip. He couldn't stop talking about it. And he was, the last thing is, he was very grateful. I had him come out to my cabin here. He and Lily came out and stayed for a couple of days. And this was many, many years ago. And every year he or Lily would send me an email and thank me for our generous offer to have him come to our cabin. And he was just so grateful. Love the man, and his memory will live on forever. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, AJ and Lily and Diehl family. I just want to tell you how much I really valued my relationship with Hans. As I was thinking about just remembering Hans and the life that he lived and the times that we shared together, the one word that came to my mind first was love. I know that Jesus had said, that to summarize the entire law and prophets was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And Hans lived that out every minute that I knew him. His passion for loving people came from that deep love that he had for people. His passion for life, the earth, the animals came because he loved God and valued the world and valued the resources in the same way that God saw the world and that God saw people. And it's just through the lens of love that Hans lived his life. And I was always inspired to be around Hans, because wherever we went, when we were together, whether I was traveling with him to the television station from St. Louis, whether we were at a conference together, Hans was always an example of peaceful love. He filled the room with love. His life was effervescent. His speech was filled with grace. His actions were always magnified by kindness. And everybody that came in contact with Hans was blessed. They went away feeling blessed in some remarkable way. And I feel blessed that I had the privilege of knowing Hans on this earth. My life has changed because of the time I spent with Hans. He's truly a mentor, I think, for all of us. He was an example to all of us of a life well lived, of a man who understood his purpose and the blueprint for his life, and he lived it to the maximum ability. He put his foot on the gas pedal and he did not stop. And he went and served people and served God with all that he had. And so, it's my sincere honor to have known him, Lily and the Diehl family. And it's my sincere blessing to be able to join you all today. And I hope that I can live, as I'm sure all of us do, on this Zoom call today. I hope that I can live in a way similar to Hans, ministering to people, serving the world with my life. And that, at the end of my life, I will be remembered in the same way that Hans has been remembered today. And one last thing that comes to my mind I just want to mention was the sweetness of the relationship between you, Lily, and Hans. It was a precious example of marriage and something that brought joy to my life too. So I just want to remember that.
Yes, it's an honor to be among all of these illustrious speakers, everyone. And I have not a lot to say, so I'll be quick. You've so well expressed your love for this amazing man, Dr. Diehl, who I knew and who always was gracious when he met me, but we didn't work closely together. I'm honored to have been able to work within his circle of plant-based practitioners and lifestyle medicine staff people, and with all of your work. As many of you said, he was a researcher, a gifted orator. He was so giving. I just want to emphasize what people have said before. The CHIP program, as I said to our ACLM staff members, because we heard of his passing from Susan Benegas, just as we gathered together for our staff meeting. And I just wanted to emphasize what the CHIP program is all about, which you've heard about, and that is community. Dr. Diehl created this foundation of lifestyle medicine based on community. It wasn't just the people who he literally healed and helped reverse disease, but the community was part of that. He, got restaurants to change their menu so that his patients and their families and the whole community could eat better. He got not just the families, but the whole tribe together to better their health. And that's just a gift. That's a gift to society. I also just wanted to just share some memories as just one of the so many of my influencers have spoken here today, and I just have memories of him speaking 20 years ago at the North American Vegetarian Conference, Vegan Conference, and playing piano. I think I remember him playing piano. Now, where did he learn that from, Dr. Lilly? I think from you. But he was just such a fun and giving speaker that the humanity of him is what I think we all remember the most. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you for putting this together, AJ, and I hand it over to you.
I just want to end, like I said, with a funny story, a 2-minute clip of Hans on my TV show. But also, I would like to read an email that Hans sent me about the CHIP program. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth, and he populated the earth with broccoli, cauliflower, and spinach, and with apples, pears, and mangoes, and with green and yellow and red vegetables, and with fruits of all kind, so that man and woman might live long and healthy lives with unclouded minds. Then, using God's great gift, God's adversary Satan created Ben & Jerry's ice cream and Krispy Kreme donuts. And he said, "You want chocolate with that too?" And man said, "Yes." And women said, "As long as you're at it, add some sprinkles to it." And they gained 10 pounds, and Satan smiled. And God created the grains, and women learned to bake 7-grade bread so that she might keep the figure that man's found so fair. And Satan invented white flour from the grain and sugar from the cane and combined them. And women went from size 6 to size 14. So God said, "Try my fresh garden salad." Then Satan presented blue cheese dressing, buttery croutons, and garlic toast on the side. And following this repast, man and women unfastened their belts. God then said, "I made for you fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes to enjoy to your heart's delight and keep your arteries wide open." And Satan brought forth deep fried fish and chicken fried steaks and spare ribs so big it required larger plates. And man and women gained more weight, and their cholesterol went through their roof, and the arteries began to clog. And God created a light, fluffy cake and named it my manna, and he said, "It's good." So Satan created a chocolate cake and named it devil's food. God then brought forth running shoes that his children might lose those extra pounds. Then Satan provided cable TV with a remote control so that man would not have to get up anymore to change channels. And man and woman laughed and cried before the flickering blue light in high definition, and they gained more pounds in their rounds, thus blurring their once so pleasant position. Then God focused their attention on the potato, naturally low in fat and high in nutrition, and Satan peeled off the healthful skin and sliced the starchy center into chips and deep fried them. And man and woman gained more pounds. God then showed woman how to fill whole wheat pita bread with the delicacies he had provided to satisfy man's appetite. Then Satan created McDonald's and its 99-cent double cheeseburger, and he said, "You want fries with that and a milkshake too?" And man replied, "Yes," and supersized them. And Satan smiled, "It's the best." And man went into cardiac arrest. And God sighed. And then he created the CHIP program to highlight his whole food program to restore once more his image through man's lip. But Satan countered, "No one will ever want to eat that." And instead, he pushed for stents and surgery to repair the damage done so freely, and man went bankrupt. So when this happened, it was actually hilarious. Pastor John Jensen was there, the Esselstyns were there, and Hans, I've never seen him laugh so hard in my life, and he often asked me to retell this story. As I mentioned at the beginning, I produce conferences. I'll be doing my 22nd and probably final conference this September, and Hans was our first keynote speaker. So this was the third conference. So this would have been 2010, 11, 12, and our keynote speaker was Dr. Esselstyn. And because Dr. Esselstyn and the Diehls, they're such good friends, we gave them, of course, front row seating. This was at Pastor Jensen's church in the South Bay, and we were old school. We didn't have anything formal. So we basically just typed up on pieces of paper, reserved for Dr. Esselstyn, for Ann Esselstyn, reserved for Dr. Diehl, and reserved for Dr. Diehl, because Lily is also a doctor. So there were two of these on the chair. Well, when Ann Esselstyn came to do her cooking demonstration, Lily asked if she could participate, and she wanted people to show people how to easily open a pomegranate. So Lily is sitting in the front row, and she's wearing a very, Lily's a diminutive, and she's wearing a very lovely skirt outfit that may be made of wool, but it had kind of a sticky Velcro-like material. And so when Lily got up to come to the stage, and remember, this is not only in front of 300 live people, but being live streamed everywhere. Somehow, and we don't know how this happened, but this sign that said reserved for Dr. Diehl got stuck right here on Lily. And she walked on stage and with this sign on her posterior that said reserved for Dr. Diehl. And the audience went nuts. People just couldn't stop laughing in the audience in the live stream. Sorry if this embarrassed Lily, but it made everyone laugh so much. And there have been many times where Hans has actually asked me to recount that story. So the motto of the story is maybe don't wear wool, but thank you so much for letting me share that. And we're just going to end with a brief, it's only 2-minute video. Hans was on my television show called Healthy Living with Chef AJ 8 years ago. I will put the entire episode on YouTube very soon for you to see it. But first, let me just share just a little clip so that you can just see how his lovely personality and sense of humor always shines through. Now, one of the recipes I've loved in your book, because they actually served it to us when I took the CHIP program, of which I'm a graduate, by the way, and I still have my pedometer too. Very good. I'm at almost 5,000 steps today. So while that, we'll switch places with you, please feel free to stir. Even though you're a doctor, I'm sure you have some rudimentary cooking skills. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but CHIP stands for clearly Hans is perfect.
I love you. You're right on target.
When did you found the CHIP program, and what gave you the idea to do that?
Well, I was reading an article in the 1970s. I was in graduate school then about a province in Finland, which was known as the Valley of Beautiful Widows. Behind that was the fact that many of their husbands had died at 35, 40 years of age. This was the area in the world that had the highest rate of heart disease, corner risk #1. And then a young physician came into the area and said, we need to change the diet. He began to change the salt intake, the fat intake, the animal products. He said, we need to bring some fruits and vegetables in here. And 25 years later, the disease rate, the death rate from heart disease had dropped by 73%. That's what inspired me.
That's incredible.
And then, of course, I had Nathan Pritikin.
You used to work for him,
I used to work there, yeah.
What a pioneer he was.
Yes, he was. There was a residential program. People would come there for 4 weeks. They would eat very simple foods, unprocessed foods, exercise. And we saw, I was stunned. The diabetes came down, the high blood pressure came down, the medications came down. And I said, I need to do this, but how do I do this for everybody? So it evolved into a program where I would then take it to the community and help people in communities. And now we have some 70,000 people around the world that are doing this kind of program.
That's absolutely inspiring and amazing. Well, Dr. Diehl, it looks like our creamy millet pudding is done. Would you mind releasing the pressure? Thank you. Wow, you're an excellent chef. Well, of course. This is your recipe and my representation of it.
We have good judgment, right?
We work very well together. Thank you so much for making
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Diehl. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you so
get in
much.
on this.
This is really legal.
It absolutely is. It's CHIP approved. What do you think? Kids would love it, wouldn't they?
I'm so glad you like it. Dr. Diehl, I'm.
Let me just finish this one.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diehl, for being a guest on Healthy Living. In addition to the 70,000 people that you've inspired to adopt a healthy lifestyle, you've also inspired me. And it's on your shoulders I stand that I become tall. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all so much for being here. It was truly a life well lived. Take care, everyone, and God bless. Bye-bye.